Okay, welcome back everybody to the Helios Academy AP Chinese Prep channel. In today's video is Unit 1, Lesson 1.1 about families and communities. This is the first lesson video for the AP Chinese video series. 大家好，今天我们要来开始我们的中文讲解，是第一单元的1.1，今天是讲家庭与社区。Alright, so 大部分的演讲我会用英文讲，然后呢，只会有一些词我会用中文讲。如果你们在观众更喜欢听我用英语或者中文讲，请你们在下方留言告诉我。但是现在我先用英语讲。Alright, so the big idea of this lesson is how does family shape identities, values, community, and Chinese-speaking society? So let's get straight into it. So here's our agenda. We're covering family structure, core vocab, grammar practice, cultural values, and exam skills. Okay. Unit 1 appears in almost every section, whether it's listening, reading, writing, and speaking. As for a matter of fact, in the 2026 cultural presentation, it was actually about 孝敬父母, right? It was about respecting your elders. So that's part of this unit. So we want to make sure we're rock solid in this unit. Okay, so what is the main difference, okay? So traditional families, 传统家庭, it's also called 大家庭. That is very common in China and also in the US where there's immigrants. 比如说, there's like a lot of immigrants, right? Like, if you're a Chinese American heritage, you might see your grandparents living with you, right? That's not that common in US cities, right? But for Americans, it's more common that the grandparents live by themselves in another home compared to their daughters and sisters, and then once the kid grows up, once they're 18, boom, they're out of there, they're in college. But for China, that's not what happens, okay? For most cases, because China has a very crowded space, so the parents usually live with their kids and also live with their parents. So you might see like grandparents, parent, kids who are like 30 years old living in the same family. That is really common. 祖父母 is called grandparents, okay? They're like the oldest of the family. So you gotta 孝顺, you gotta like respect your elders. That's one of the core values of Chinese. And then modern family, okay? So now we're gonna talk about the modern family of China and also Americans. It's also called the nuclear family, 核心家庭. So recently, I'm not sure if China has changed this, but in recent years, China has adopted the one-child policy. It's called 独生子女, right? And then urban migration broke extended families, and also there's rising divorce rates because back in the ancient Chinese places, parents would usually make their kids marry somebody for stats or wealth, or to make, even in bigger cases, two countries, like back in the China's 战国时期, people would make their daughter marry somebody to make the countries get closer in relationship. But this is really like out of time because now divorce rates are rising. Women have more rights in China. That's also a main factor because back then women didn't have much rights in China, but now there's like a lot of rights protecting women's, and then women can actually like do what they want to. And then there's also a lot of 单亲家庭, where it's a single family house, like only your mom or your dad, due to a lot of reasons, okay? So I want you guys to think about how has your family structure changed across your generations, whether it's your grandparents to now to you, okay? All right, next slide. So here are some of the key vocabulary. So it's going to be 家庭, okay? This means family, right? And then there's 父母, it just means your parents. It applies to both your parents. Like 父 in Chinese writing is your dad. 母, your writing Chinese is your mom. So that's why it's parents. And then 兄弟姐妹, it's called siblings, right? It's like your sister and your brothers. That's you just write 兄弟姐妹. And then 祖父母 is your grandparents, your grandma or your grandpa. And then 亲戚 is your relatives, whether your aunt, cousin, etc. And then 孩子 is your children. Some other vocab we have is 独生子女. This means only child, single child. Like if you don't have a sister or a brother, you can tell people that 我是个独生子女. And then the next one is 邻居, neighbor. so just neighbor. And then 社区 means community, like 这是我的社区 I live in this 社区 And then 传统 means tradition, like 传统文化 traditional culture, 传统艺术 traditional arts. And then 习俗 is customs. Each place in China has usually their own 习俗. We'll talk about this more in Unit 2. And then there's 代沟 generational gap. All right, so now we're going to go over some grammar practices. So a lot of these are transition words. So it's like 除了以外还有 it's in addition to also. This is useful when you're listening on a bunch of stuff. Like, let me give an example. Let's say 除了他会打篮球之外除了他喜欢打篮球以外他还喜欢弹钢琴 right? It's saying like, oh, he likes to play basketball, but he also, in addition, likes to play piano. So also you see an example, 除了父母以外我还有个弟弟 Besides my parents, I also have a younger brother. And then there's 虽然但是 although, however, right? Like, you can say this as like, oh, 虽然我的篮球打得很好但是我的个子不高 right? Even though I'm good at basketball, but I'm kind of short, right? It's like a comparison. In the example given, we can see that it says, 虽然我们的家不大但是很温暖 right? It's a comparison between your family being big, but it's very warm. Although our family is not big, it is very warm. Next, we have 既然就 since then. You can say 既然你是家里的长子你就要负责任 because you can kind of say like, oh, because you're the oldest, you must take responsibility. So this is very useful. Next slide. So here are the cultural values of 儒家思想. So this is basically Confucianism. I'll talk more about Confucius in the next couple units about Chinese history. But basically, Confucius, 孔子, is a very famous Chinese person and philosopher that for thousands of years we have believed to be correct, kind of like a godlike figure, right? So whatever he says is like written down in books and we follow them word for word, okay? So the first idea that shaped Chinese families is 孝, right? Basically, 孝 is you gotta respect and you gotta care for your elders. This is really important. There's also a word called 义, right? It's kindness and loving towards all people, starting family. So there's a saying in China that's like, oh, if you can't love your family, how are you supposed to love the society? So you gotta first love your family with 人. Oh, shoot, I mixed 人 and 义, my bad. This one's 人, this one's 义. So what is 义? 义 is basically like you have this moral baseline, right? You know what is right for the society, you know what's right for the family. You can say like, I'm not going to steal this money from this elder parent, from this elderly person, because it's not 仁义. All right. Next one is 礼. This is like your proper behaviors. 你的这个就是尊敬别人和你的这个礼貌, right? So it's social norms, rituals, and proper behaviors and relationships. It's like you are a well-educated person, you gotta have 礼. You can't just act like a crazy person. That is not 礼, okay? So these are the main 4 values of the 儒家思想. This is really useful in shaping Chinese families. Most Chinese parents always, if not teach you all of these, but for sure, they're going to teach you to 孝敬你的父母, respect your parents. Okay? This is just some exam skills. We can skip through this. All right, so this is like a practice prompt. So it says, 描述中国家庭观念的一个特点，并与你自己文化中家庭观念进行比较. Okay, so you guys could pause this video, give this a try based on the last couple of minutes I've explained to you guys. And then here's a model response, right? You can say this is actually really relevant to the 2026 FRQ. This is basically the same thing. But you can start with, oh, 在中国文化中孝顺是家庭关键的核心. Like, this is the most important part of a family relationship. And then now you can explain, right? You can say, 孩子从小被教导要尊敬父母和老人. 这种传统可以追溯到儒家思想。You can say more like 如果一个人不尊敬、不孝顺父母和老人，那这个人被认为是没有道德的。That's more advanced. And then next, you want to compare to your culture because this is the second part of the question. Compare it to your own culture, right? So you can say, 相比之下，在我的文化中，个人自由更被视重。孩子成年后通常会独立生活。So this is more of like a US kind of culture, right? Like once you're 18, you move out of the house and you're not worried about like, oh, I gotta take my parents to the park every night, walk with them, talk with them. I also gotta like 给他们洗脚, right? 给他们做饭, cook for them. Nope. In America, once you're 18, you come visit your parents once or twice a year. That's it, right? There's no 孝敬 idea. Even though you still have to be respectful, don't get me wrong, but it's not as much compared to China. In the conclusion, 虽然两种文化有所不同，但尊敬家人是共同的价值观, right? Respecting your families is the most important value. So here are some key phrases and idioms, 成语与俗语. First one, 家和万事兴. When the family lives in harmony, all affairs will prosper. Right? So this is saying like, 如果你的父母, if your family is happy, everything, no matter what, is going to be good. Next is 望子成龙. This is a really famous idiom. It says, parents hope their child will become successful, like a dragon. Right? So this is basically saying, I wish my child was so successful that he is a dragon. Because in China, dragon symbolizes good stuff. Okay, this is also kind of like another 成语. It's called 恨铁不成钢. It's basically saying, I'm just so mad. I want to push my child to become the greatest. That's why you see Chinese parents being so strict on their kids, because they first of all wish their kids 可以望子成龙, and then 他们也恨铁不成钢. Okay. The next one, 上有老下有小. So this is more of describing like the middle of a family. Like he has a grandparent, he has like a mom or dad living in a family, and he also has kids. So this is like the middle age 30 to 50-year-old people. So this is the burden of caring both the elderly parents and the young children. So this is saying, I gotta help my parents go to doctors, but I also gotta care for my kids going to school. So much pressure. This is basically saying like, I have too much pressure on me. The next one is 尊老爱幼. This is saying respect the elders and care for the young. This is also a 道德观念 for China, right? You gotta respect whoever raised you and the elders because they're older. And you also gotta care for the young ones because they're weak. 代沟, this is just basically the generational gap between parents and children, right? And then the last one is 手心手背都是肉. This is saying parents love all their children equally, no matter what. Like you might have a sister or brother, but to your parents, all of you guys are their meat. 都是他们的肉, right? Because they fell off of the parents, so the parents like 你是我身上的一块肉. Yeah, you see? All right, so now that basically concludes our first lesson. So the summary is you should know what is the difference between traditional versus modern family structures. Traditional just means like the ancient times, like 1,000 years ago. And then some core vocabulary that I just explained to you guys. And then the transition words I explained earlier in slide 2 or something like that. And then Confucius values, 这个儒家思想，孝、义、仁、礼, etc., right? And then some idioms for the exam. And this is how you write 家, house in China, right? So you see there's like a roof, but I don't know why this is, but I'll explain to you guys the writing of China in Unit 2. That basically concludes our lesson for 1.1. If you guys have any questions, feel free to drop in the comments. I'll also send out some homeworks if you guys want to do them. But if not, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.